This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, giving you even more specialized support than ever before. Like access to the trade desk, our team of passionate traders ready to tackle anything from the most complex trading questions to a simple strategy gut check. Need assistance? No problem. Get 24/7 professional answers and live help, and access support by phone, email, and in-platform chat. That's how Schwab is here for you, to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind a beautiful game, with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire, who contented himself with having no countdown by going no countdown for the 6 seconds that we were counting in to the show. Sounds damn, I should have said counting down. I'm a comedy professional. I got that totally wrong. Hello, Kieran. How are you?
I'm okay, except I've got a bit of an issue. I'm in Liverpool at present. I'm living the bachelor lifestyle, and it's great fun. Except that part of the nature of a bachelor lifestyle is that you cook everything in an air fryer, including things which shouldn't be cooked in an air fryer. So last night something caught a wee bit of flame. And the smoke alarms went off, which was good. I'm not denying that. Yeah. I took the air fryer out onto the balcony to let it all go down, and then the smoke alarm said, "Well, we've started. We will not finish." So I've had to switch the power off. So for reasons best known to Brian, my very good electrician, he's put the smoke alarm on the same circuit as the lights.
Of course,
which meant that last night it was very romantic. There was no noise from the smoke alarm, but there was. I was living by candlelight.
On your own, as a
yes.
Reasons best known to any electrician, Kieran, is they assume you know nothing about electricity,
and very wisely too, has to be said.
As you're probably aware, Kieran, I'm again air fryers, in the same way that I'm again the wire. Because more people say to me, "What do you mean you haven't got an air fryer? You have to get an air fryer." And I go, "No, I can cook. I don't need a miniature oven smashing my electricity bill through the roof just to put fish fingers." I was not aware, Kieran, that you could not cook quinoa and couscous in an air fryer. What were you thinking of? I can only assume there's some combination of Marmite and quinoa going on in there. It's Newsday, Kieran. We didn't have a particularly exciting news show to bring you, I have to say, except we're recording this on Tuesday, and a very big story came through just a couple of hours before we recorded it. And West Ham fans spent most of their time at Selhurst last night during a terrible game.
It was a stinker.
That's my fault for having to go at the Brentford-Fulham game on Saturday. It was really... especially when you've still got a bad back and you can't stand... Well, actually, with a bad back, not having to stand up every 2 minutes is the better option, I have to say. And I don't recall standing up very often at all during a game. But West Ham fans spent most of the time singing "Sack the Board," and they kind of got half their wish this morning, Kieran, in this suddenly timed announcement that Baroness Brady is leaving the club. Although, oddly, it's a decision... We've been hearing this a lot recently. It's a decision she said she made several months ago and has held on to until this morning.
Yes, it does seem You work in comedy, Kevin, and it's all to do with timing in terms of delivering. To announce your immediate resignation when there are 5 games left of the season, when the focus is on West Ham preserving their Premier League status, and with another director also leaving, again with immediate effect, does seem strange. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this into 2. First of all, an assessment of Karren Brady's career. And secondly, the why factor. It has to be more complicated than this. So in terms of her career, she started at Birmingham City at the age of 23 in what was a different environment, and it's basically a more or less enlightened environment today. And I think she deserves an awful lot of credit for having to stick out the rampant misogyny that existed in football then, and it has to be said still exists to a certain extent today. When Julia Bold came on our live show at Liverpool, she shared some of her experiences that she has to deal with, and it's it's just a bit pathetic of some of us blokes. So she has had to develop a fairly steely-like exterior to have to deal with some of the nonsense which comes out. She, from a shareholder's point of view, delivered an excellent negotiation of the transfer to the new stadium at a very reasonable rental figure. I think in terms of the move, the fans certainly feel let down, and you and I know as away fans, and I think West Ham fans have to experience this 19 times a year. It's not a football stadium. No. In any way, shape or form, and anybody that went to Upton Park, the bowling ground, it was ferocious when it was. When West Ham fans were especially for an evening match. I went to a longer one or two. It was a good old fashioned stadium. I think in terms of what happened with the bowling ground, I don't think we've ever had a proper explanation, in the sense that the stadium was sold. I think it was sold for around about £30 million, and lo and behold, or it sold for £40 million, and lo and behold, the people to whom the stadium was sold then managed to fairly quickly resell it for £60 million. So I think that's a blot on the copybook. She is vehemently opposed to the independent football regulator, of which I will always defend somebody's right to express their own heartfelt opinions. Whether this justified her taking up so much time in the House of Lords to filibuster, I thought that was disappointing. This was just stalling tactics. So it's a mixed card. It's a mixed report. She has certainly been the standard bearer, I think, for other women who've come into football, and to show that good leadership qualities are required, and that's not the monopoly of men, despite what many men seem to think. So I think she deserves some credit for that. She was quite dismissive, I think, of the fans, which didn't count for her. So that's where she is, and like everybody, I wish them well for the future.
I'm interested, Kieran, in a couple of things in her role as at West Ham, and indeed the timing of the leaving of that role. First of all, it's interesting that you mentioned women in football, because the BBC's report and several others, for reasons I can't quite understand, emphasise the fact that she was in charge of women's football at West Ham. They were the only team at a high level never to allow the women to play at the actual ground. Now, I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, or whether that was just part of the CV they included in her leaving. I would be interested to know in how hands-on she was in terms of running the club. Was it her that ran the club on a day-to-day basis? Was she making decisions? We know she was put in by, I'm not sure if it's David Gold or David Sullivan who gave her the job, but she's been there since 2010, which surprised me, Kieran. It's a long time. And also, I think the timing of it, we would ask this about any executive at a club in their situation. You can't answer this, of course you can't, only she can, but is it an attempt to distance herself from any possible relegation? Because it does seem the worst possible time to leave a club. I mean, obviously the manager and the players would say the CEO of a football club or a senior executive has no bearing on how that team will be playing for the last 5 games of the season, but the timing is odd. It can only add to the uncertainty around the football club, no matter how much the fans are delighted to see the back of her. And looking at social media this morning, looking at West Ham fan sites, my God, they are delighted to see the back of her. Now, whether that's because she's solely taking the blame for the move to the new stadium, or whether they blame her for other things. But bear in mind, this is a club that won a European competition 2 seasons ago. It's a club that this time last season you would have said were an established Premier League club. So her legacy clearly isn't that bad to an outsider.
It is. I mean, in terms of the women's team never having played at the London Stadium, I don't know the intricate details, but I would actually broadly defend the position in the sense that West Ham have a rental agreement. Now, that rental agreement might only go as far as West Ham's men's team paying rent and not the women's team. And therefore, perhaps if they tried to negotiate a separate tenancy for the women's team, it could be that they did the sums and the numbers simply didn't add up. So that was one thing. As far as hands-on role, she did have other responsibilities. She was a baroness. She was therefore had obligations towards the House of Lords. She had a high-profile role with The Apprentice. Never quite sure how many days recording that takes. You're the showbiz person on that one, she wrote newspaper columns and so on. So she certainly had a demands on her as far as her time was concerned. I think she was, however, fairly hands-on in terms of her role as deputy chairman and running the club on a day-to-day basis. So she was, for want of a better phrase, she was David Sullivan's eyes and ears, and the line of communication. As far as the timing is concerned, and this is pure speculation, I was contacted by a secret hammer earlier today, and this was gossip, okay, and this was no more than that, and the secret hammer saying, well, there are discussions about what is going to happen to the shares which were held by the former owner, David Gold. He and David Sullivan effectively used to share the control of the club. There is also a guy from Czechia, I think it is now known. Or apologies if I've got the country wrong. It was Czech Republic. Yeah. Daniel Kretinsky.
Yeah.
And I think the speculation is that there could be a change as far as the ownership is concerned, and could the sort of control now be split between Daniel Kretinsky and David Sullivan in a similar way to what we did used to see between David Sullivan and David Gold. Again, this is all conjecture. If that was the case, and I was Daniel Kretinsky, I would probably want somebody who was independent to be my representative. And Karren Brady is very closely aligned to both David Gold and David Sullivan, initially, of course, in her position at Birmingham City, and then subsequently when they moved to West Ham. So it could be that she's moving aside as part of a much more significant, in terms of sort of investor perspective, for the club. And does this mean that Daniel Kretinsky is going to step up because he's very much been a silent partner not in a similar way to what we've seen with Woody Johnson at Palace.
Yeah,
he's never been seen. You might have seen him at the ground, but he's never spoken about it. It's the Steve Parish show, and we know Steve is again a hands-on owner. So it is. I do think the timing's odd. Again, if these negotiations were taking place, why not just go and sort it out at the end of the season and get it dealt with then? It does make you wonder what else is going on, and of course, the internet loves to fill a vacuum, and that's what we have seen over the course of the last few hours.
Well, speaking of what else is going on, it comes just a few weeks after the announcement from West Ham that relegation or no relegation, they would have to be cutting costs in the summer, that they would be selling players before they bought them, and then the acquisition of a rather large loan from a company that you're quite sniffy about. So West Ham fans and journalists are putting two and two together and making five off the back of that as well, in particular in the timing. To answer your question about The Apprentice and how many days should have been involved, the answer is not many. I also know the poor sod whose job it is.
That's showbiz, kids.
I also know the poor sod whose job it is to write the ad-libs for Sir Alan Sugar when he's amusingly firing people.
Yes, they don't look forced at all, do they?
No, not at all. And all I can tell you is that when they did one at Dunsinane Castle, which was legendarily the home of Macbeth, Mr. Sugar, Lord Sugar, I beg your pardon, didn't take kindly to any of the ad-libs that were of a Shakespearean nature, shall we say. Like, one of them being, I can't see any dagger. There is no dagger. That's why I can't see a dagger. I don't change it to a pun on "you're fired." There's a story you're playing. Your team are playing Chelsea tonight, Kieran. Which, if the atmosphere at the Everton-Chelsea game is anything to go by, the atmosphere at your game against Chelsea tonight could be set. Any atmosphere would be handy at the Amex, Kieran. Let's face it. But there's no love lost between Brighton and Chelsea in the same way there's no love lost between Everton and Chelsea at the moment. So this story, Kieran, about, I hesitate to use the word ticket touting, and Chelsea is right up your street.
Yes, this is Chelsea co-owner Todd Bowley. He has an interest in a company called Vivid Seats, and Vivid Seats is an unauthorised seller of Premier League tickets. So what it tends to do is it tends to sell those tickets to via its US website or via its Irish website and so on. And a lot of people saw those tickets going up for sale for the FA Cup semi-final, which I think Leeds could sell out 3 or 4 times over.
Easily.
There's no doubt about. Chelsea possibly less so, but then Chelsea have been in cup finals. Chelsea are currently the holders of 2 trophies. Yeah. So that has to be remembered. I think the reaction of the Chelsea Supporters Trust, who have put out some very statesmanlike pronouncements and have conducted themselves very impressively in recent months, they just said that they're really disappointed. Somebody's selling tickets for £1,700, and making money out of this. And whether directly or indirectly, Todd Bowley is the face of Chelsea management, executive management. He is seen as being, therefore, a guardian of the club who is held to a high service agreement. We expect you to conduct yourself in a way which we would hope we would conduct ourselves if we were in a similar position. And this just looks rather grubby. I also went on to Vivid Seats, and if you use a virtual private network especially, you can access sort of the overseas variant of these websites. And I think Chelsea's last home game of the season is against Spurs. Now, that game could be quite seismic. I think it is fair to say there are hundreds upon hundreds of seats available for Chelsea versus Spurs on the Vivid Seats website. I think prices start around about, I think it was about €240 each, going up to €1,700 for the most expensive. Now, when I look at the Premier League website, it is very explicit, and it says that there are approved resellers and there are the rest. And it says if you do buy a ticket from a non-approved source, then the club is entitled to cancel those tickets. And I've certainly seen from the likes of Manchester United and Liverpool and Arsenal and other clubs, they have gone to town at times. Yeah, they have cancelled many tickets which are being sold by these unauthorised organisations. I mean, the question I ask myself, is Chelsea doing the same? Because here we've got a classic conflict of interest. If Chelsea are going to say, we are not going to use an approved reseller, and we're going to turn a blind eye to what Vivid Seats are doing, then I don't think that holds the club in a very good position. The Premier League have just waved it through, as the Premier League seem to do with all things to do with Chelsea. And of course, as soon as you mention Chelsea and financial issues, I'm in Liverpool. I can see hackles rising over my shoulder from Evertonians who feel that the punishment didn't fit the crime. Effectively a £1 million a season fine given to Chelsea, which during a period in which they won many trophies and qualified for the Champions League and so on, was not proportionate to the extent of the misdemeanours with which they were proven guilty of. There's an element of Caesar's wife when you are a club owner, and this doesn't look too good.
Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
This episode is brought to you by Palmolive. Family time isn't just the big moments. It's weeknight dinners, sitting around the table, everyone talking all at once. So when the plates are empty and the sink is full, use Palmolive Ultra. Palmolive's most powerful formula removes up to 99.9% of grease, leaving your dishes sparkling clean. And the new convenient pump makes cleaning even easier, so you can spend less time tackling dishes and more time together. Shop now at palmolive.com.
I can see hackles rising on the screen in front of me, Kieran. I'm going to assume your hackles are rising because your headphones lifted slightly off your head. And I can't see any other reason why they would do that unless your hackles were rising. There is another issue here, Kieran, especially with the FA Cup semi-final, for which I believe the cheapest ticket is £1,070, which are prices that even Gianni Infantino might raise an eyebrow at in terms of being too expensive. And I'm not the only person to mention this, and that's security. Because technically these sites, of course, are only meant to sell these tickets to bona fide Chelsea fans in that end of the ground. But we all know from experience, Kieran, that's not necessarily going to happen. We know, as you say, Chelsea fans at the moment have the hump with the club. So much so, I think that should you beat Chelsea tonight, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see their manager being sacked before the end of the season. So Leeds fans, I think, have got more reason to want to go to a game at Wembley where they haven't been for a long time. it does seem to me that this raises a very interesting backdoor way for Leeds fans to get in to the Chelsea end, which, as we know, with the relationship historically between those two clubs, ain't a good idea.
I agree with you entirely. And ironically, because I'm up in Liverpool, I can't go to the match tonight. Now, I put my ticket up for sale about 4 weeks ago. It's not resold, and part of the reason why it's resold is that Brighton are very, very fussy as to who, because they won't put these tickets on general sale because it is Chelsea, and therefore a seat will go unused, which I'm neither here nor there. That I'm not getting my money back. That's a separate issue, which I'm not particularly bothered about. But it's part of me is relieved because the Baroness is going to be there, and frankly, I don't want a Chelsea fan sat next to her. So I understand where the clubs come from. So if we've got some clubs which are offering protection for fans, if they are trying to implement the rules, and we've got other clubs which are taking a fairly laissez-faire approach, that is, of course, a concern. And as we are talking about Chelsea, I feel duty-bound to talk about Chelsea's parent company, 22 Holdco. There's a very smart guy, an Evertonian called Paul Quinn. I know Paul. I've met Paul once. We have discussions on things, and he's a very smart cookie, successful businessman, and so on. And he did an investigation. He sort of got an advisory company into the state of 22 Holdco, which is Chelsea's owners, who also own Strasbourg, who also own Chelsea women's team. And I think I've mentioned in passing that 22 Holdco have been losing multiples of the numbers that Chelsea have been losing. But it turns out that 22 Holdco, because they've been losing so much money, they themselves have had to borrow from an investment vehicle called Ares Management, or Ares Management, in something which is called a PIK loan, and PIK stands for payment in kind. Now, this is not dissimilar, and I'm not trying to trivialise this. This is not dissimilar to some of the lending arrangements that my dear departed Uncle Terry was involved with, where you would lend people money and you would charge them interest, and then you would charge interest on the interest. And this is where I sort of became involved when I was a child, in the sense that I could do compound interest calculations in my head, which in an era before calculators was quite useful, and in an industry where keeping written records of transactions was sort of frowned upon. And They borrowed, I think it was just over 400 or 450 million, but because there's interest being charged on the interest, and you're not paying any interest, it's all being compounded up. At the 30th of June 2025, Chelsea, via 22 Holdco, owed 600 million. And admittedly, this does cover the activities in Strasbourg and the women's team as well. But what happens if those loans are not repaid on the due date? It would appear that Ares or Ares, whatever you want to call them, they will be able to convert their loans into shares, and potentially we could have new owners of Chelsea through the back door. Where that leaves the owners and directors test, heaven only knows. Are Ares management interested in running a soccer team? A loss-making soccer team? I suspect not. So there are things to cause concern, and fair play to Paul. He's done a very, very thorough job, and he's a very professional guy. So I don't doubt the accuracy of his investigation.
Are you worried, Kieran, that any Chelsea fan who sat next to the Baroness tonight might be a sophisticated wine connoisseur Londoner who doesn't like Marmite?
No. I'm more concerned for him, actually, because as you've met my good lady wife on many an occasion, and she's a modicum of restraint. She's not uncouth. She's not like me. But the only time I've ever heard her use the C-bomb was the first time that Brighton played Chelsea after Potter and quite a few others had left. And Brighton were 4-1 up. And Mark Cucurella was substituted on the far side of the pitch, and then he had the ignominy. He'd been sold by Brighton to Chelsea. That was part of the bad feeling. So he had to walk around the perimeter of the stadium. And as he got to our part, I was giving it the usual, calling the Ross Noble Tribute Act, and the usual nonsense. And she shouted out, "Something off, you floppy-haired C." And everybody who sat around us just looked. That sort of did a double take. Did the Baroness actually use? And I'm going, it's not with me. Not with me. You wouldn't count me using that type of nonsense.
She would have got a round of applause at Selhurst Park, mate. I tell you. Also, it does spring to mind a pleasing 70s image of the Baroness swinging her handbag at some Chelsea fan tonight. Talking of ticket resale, Kieran, I tried to resell my ticket halfway through the first half last night, but the club weren't having any of it. Now, this next story, Kieran, involving as it does Evangelos Marinakis and his control of Nottingham Forest, has had me twitchy ever since I heard about it. But I have to say I'm not entirely sure of the significance of the timing of it, Kieran, and why some Palace fans are getting so angry about it.
Right. Evangelos Marinakis has transferred his ownership of NF Investments, which is the parent company of Nottingham Forest Football Club, to a group of individuals called something Four, Pride Four, some sort of weird name. Or I think the Pickford Four, something strange like that. And that document appeared on Companies House on the 16th of April. Now, the reason why I suspect this has produced the ire of many a Crystal Palace fan is that under UEFA rules, if you are part of a multi-club operation, then you must divest of your investment in one of those entities by the 1st of March.
Right.
So, because it's appeared at Companies House on the 16th of April, people are saying, well, hold on, that is past the due date. And given what happened to Crystal Palace last season, in the sense that they were demoted, and I still maintain very harshly, from participation in the Europa League, what we have is there's a fair chance that Olympiakos, which is Mr. Marinakis' Greek team, could be in the Champions League. And of course, Nottingham Forest have made it to the semi-finals of the Europa League. The winners of the Europa League qualify for the Champions League. So, clearly that has been spotted at some point in time. Now, there was an article in one of the newspapers at the end of February to say that this was going to happen. I think the noises that we are getting from the secret tricky trees are along the lines of, because the Premier League is taking a more forensic approach to owners and directors tests, whilst the Premier League, if the Premier League was nominally advised and UEFA were nominally advised that the process had started before the 1st of March, then I think there's absolutely nothing to worry about from Forest's perspective. It's the timing of the documentation being sent to Companies House which has provoked the it's scratched an old itch, shall we say.
Well, UEFA will let him get away with it whatever happens, let's face it. And also, we've all tried that. Palace tried that. Well, we were thinking about it before the 1st of March. It definitely occurred to us. We just didn't do anything about it. We've all tried that. Having said that, I've decided to keep my head down on this issue for the moment, Kieran, because in all honesty, much as we were treated shamefully by UEFA, we have ended up in a tournament we were much more likely to win. So I'm keeping my powder dry until such time as the outcome of the semi-final and the final in Leipzig. I would suggest that if we do get to the final, Mr. Seferin comes down with COVID just for a couple of days. Might be best. Unless he wants to go down with the old ear burny disease, he'll be out for a couple of days with a severely burnt ear, I imagine. From Nottingham Forest, Kieran, to Northampton Town. Optimistic talks this weekend about them. Yes,
they are a club which don't really come under our radar too often. No. I've had a grumble about one or two things historically, but they are, like many clubs in the EFL, they are losing money, and they're losing between £2 to £3 million a year. And you might say, well, that's not a lot of money. Yes, it is. I've always argued in recent weeks that we have become so used to the huge numbers put out by the likes of Chelsea losing £262 million, or should that be £700 million? We don't really know. That when a club announce losses of £3 million, there we go. Well, that's not too bad. Well, it does mean that somebody has to go and find £60,000 a week. So it looks as if the present owners of Northampton Town are trying to find a new owner. There are complications with the stadium, and there have been issues going on with the past, but they do appear to be in talks. I've got to be honest, they are not the only club who are currently in talks with prospective owners, and getting deals over the line is a really tough thing, not only in terms of people coming in with potentially good intentions and then walking away when they just see the extent of activities. And as far as Northampton are concerned, they've got £13.5 million worth of debts. And if I was to say how much is Northampton Town worth, well, after paying off those £13.5 million worth of debts, I'd be saying close to nothing. So, why sell under those circumstances? Unless, of course, it's a practical viewpoint being taken by the owners, is that it's costing us £2 to £3 million a year. Let's just walk away, with our heads held as high as we can, and say, at least I don't have to go and write out that cheque every month or week.
Never mind the sellers and the buyers. Would paying off those debts be one of the requisite acts for the buyers to do? Because, as you say, once they've done that, what are they left with value-wise?
There's. Well, I've been to Northampton Town, FA Cup second round, 1987, I think it was. The last time I was there. Gary Nelson scored the winner. Those are the days. Those are the days when FA Cup matches were lasered into the memory banks. But you're not. If you're going to have to go and pay off somebody else's debts and they get £1 on top, you're starting off with a fairly sizable deficit. So the new owners would then have to take into consideration, how much is it going to cost us over the next 5 years to run this club? If we want this club to be a success, success doesn't come cheap. And I was talking to somebody with EFL team connections only a few days ago, and he was saying that the consensus amongst executives of EFL clubs is identical. It's an absolute mess. The losses are multiplying. Something has to be done. But then you come to that awkward issue. What? Because if that's something that has to be done involves your club showing no ambition for the next 2 to 3 years as far as success on the pitch is concerned, then the resultant grumpiness amongst fans and the sense of lack of ambition amongst other stakeholders is so overwhelming that you do end up going back to the casino environment in which English football currently operates.
Some FA Cup games are still lasered on the memory even these days, Kieran.
I did hand that one to you. Yes, absolutely.
I always feel sorry for Northampton Town, because it's one of those clubs who are famous amongst other fans only for two things, and it really annoys Northampton fans. It's like, yes, we know we only had 3 sides to the ground and there was a cricket club next to it. We were there, we remember that. Have a go at Oxford. What's the matter with you? And secondly, George Best scoring 6 goals in an FA Cup game.
Yes.
So it's the same with
wasn't it?
It's the same with the Brentford pub on every corner. Like when I would say to them, as though they didn't know, as though they were unaware that there was a pub on every corner. Northampton Town fans are fully aware that George Best scored 6 fucking goals against them in an FA Cup game, a record that stands to this game. 2 stories, Kieran, about transfer bargoes even. This is what the kids call them. It's only us old people who call them embargoes, Kieran. The kids call them bargoes. So, first of all, Aldershot Town's bargo.
Yeah, I think you could become a genuine influencer, Kevin, talking like that. I can just see you taking control of one of the clubs in the Baller League.
You imagine that
coming down and high fiving all of your influencer fans. I can see it. This new environment. One of my friends went to a Baller League match earlier this week, and he said it's not football, but there's a huge interest in it, and a lot of enthusiasm. So let's not be too sniffy until we've experienced it. I might go and watch it next week in Liverpool myself.
I don't recall anyone being sniffy about Baller League. You introduced the subject. If I ever do become an influencer, I look forward to my fans waving their Zimmer frames at me in some delight when they see me. So I'm neither for. I think anything that gets people in watching any sport that involves the round ball is fine by me. Basically, it's the round ball is the important bit.
That's the important thing.
Anyway, Aldershot Town and their embargo, Kieran.
Yes, Aldershot Town were given an embargo by the National League for failure to pay its VAT bill.
Oh.
And they are delighted to say that that's now been resolved. I mean, not that it's going to make a blind bit of difference in April, because clearly the window's not open yet. But it's just one of those things that hangs over. But we're hoping to get the National League head honcho onto the show.
Yes, ex-Palace CEO.
To talk all things. And one of the things I'm very delighted about is the naming and shaming of clubs. And the EFL do this as well. Yeah, if you get an embargo, boom, it goes up on the website.
Yeah,
it's the same with the National League. And whilst from an operational, from a practical point of view, it really doesn't make a lot of difference to the club. In terms of bragging rights, in terms of the credibility and the perceived compliance with rules that exists within football fans, it does sharpen the mind and focuses the attention, and therefore that's to be encouraged. But more importantly, Aldershot Town have paid the VAT bill and it has been lifted.
Good.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
That brings us to Sheffield Wednesday, Kieran. It's by way of a flimsy excuse for a catch-up, basically, as we haven't mentioned them for quite some time, but their prospective new owners have mentioned that they would want to see the club's transfer ban lifted ASAP. So what can you tell us about both them and that at the moment?
Well, it looks as if the Storch family, and I think they played this quite cannily. They have been in talks with the EFL in recent weeks. They are the preferred bidder, and it has gone a bit quiet on the Sheffield Wednesday front. And first of all, huge credit to those Wednesday fans that are still turning in, week out, home and away, to watch a club which has not won since they went into administration, from what I can recall. And they're still on minus points and so on. But it looks as if David Storch has been in communication with the EFL. And the reason for this is that if you exit administration and you do not pay your unsecured creditors at least 25 pence in the pound, then you would be subject to a 15-point penalty at the start of the following season. The initial preferred bidder, who was apparently going to pay £58 million, and everybody that I spoke to said that just makes no sense whatsoever. And you and I, we recall when we did a live show in Rotherham last year, I said at the time, and that's when Wednesday were mid-table in the Championship and had some players who were of significant value. I thought the value was probably then around about 40 million, perhaps a wee bit more. But as soon as the club had its issues over the course of the summer, good players left. The club went into administration. There was no way that its value had increased during that period. So it looks as if there have been communications, and that the EFL is saying, look, really sorry about this, folks. This is the rule book, and the rule book is fairly unequivocal. I think Storch is saying, well, surely the rule book is a guideline rather than a strict interpretation. And you've got to look at it through a series of lenses here. First of all, from the prospective owner, they don't want to acquire Sheffield Wednesday on minus 15 points next season. I absolutely understand that. Secondly, the owners of the other 23 clubs in League One next season, and they would like Sheffield Wednesday to start on minus 15 points next season.
Yeah.
And should that not be the case, should there be a reduction or a termination of the 15-point penalty, I would imagine that Rick Parry and Trevor Birch will be getting a series of emails and potentially a letter or two from a legal firm to say, you've not applied your own rules, other clubs have, we, the other clubs, are at a disadvantage. And people forget what happened with Bury Football Club. Bury Football Club were expelled, in effect, by the other clubs in the EFL on the basis of a vote. Now, that wasn't because they disliked Bury Football Club, but the other clubs in League Two at the time said, if we reduce League Two to just 23 clubs this season, that means that only one club instead of two is going to be relegated to the National League. Therefore, if I vote for Bury to be expelled, I reduce the chances of my club being relegated by 50%. Yeah. So it's nothing to do with football. It's all to do with self-preservation and self-interest. So that's what I think we are seeing here. Is there a way out of this which could benefit all parties? I bring to the table a third stakeholder, and that stakeholder is our very good friend Dejan Chansiri. Now, if Dejan Chansiri writes to the administrators and says, I've just checked my accounts, and instead of me being owed £60 million or whatever it is, or £120 million, it's difficult to work out because you've got money owed to Sheffield 3 and to Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. But instead of me being owed a large sum of money and therefore demanding 25% of this, which is what going to be £15 million as part of the overall bid, would have to go to him because he would be classified as an unsecured creditor. I've just realised that actually I'm not owed a penny by Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. I'm going to do exactly the same as Mel Morris at Derby County. I'm going to write off what is owed to me. And on the back of that, we could have a situation where the Storch Group could then pay 25% to all the other unsecured creditors, and Sheffield Wednesday start next season on 0 points. The ball is in your court, Dejan.
I'll come back to Wednesday in a moment, Kieran, but very briefly, talking of Bury, any news on the Steve Dale court case, the fraud case that he was being charged on?
No. I mean, that like many cases, there is a long period of time between charge and hearing.
Okay. Sheffield Wednesday fans have been magnificent with a mixture of defiance and bloody-mindedness that the rest of us can only applaud, and which some of us who have been in that administration situation can recognise as well. You do, when your backs are against the wall and you think the world hates you, you do tend to come out swinging. My worry is this. I went to a rehearsed reading of a play about Sheffield Wednesday last week, which was very good. It's about the game in which they came back from 4-0 down against Peterborough in the playoffs, and it was basically it was an exceptional piece of work. The small theatre was full of Sheffield Wednesday fans. Quite a few of them I got talking to. Quite a few of them had been to our gig in Rotherham last year. The worry is, as they point out, that the defiance and bloody-mindedness is all very well now, but if they're still in a similar situation come Christmas, that will probably have worn off. You'll probably see crowds dropping by a considerable number, because there's only so much energy you can use on being defiant and bloody-minded, and when it looks like there's still no light at the end of the tunnel, even the most passionate of fans starts to lose their patience a little bit, and that is a worry for any ongoing prospective purchaser of the club. There's also that worry, as a lot of them pointed out, is we thought this was going to be over a lot quicker than it has been, and of course with every day that goes by, that sets them worrying even further. It's a long time now between Chansiri leaving, and by the way, good luck with that impassioned plea to him to decide that he's not owed any money anymore. But you do wonder and worry about how long Sheffield Wednesday fans can keep this up.
Yeah, without wanting to make it too melodramatic, it's not dissimilar to what the people in Ukraine are going through, in the sense that you get fatigued by being defiant and trying to take on the system, an oppressive attack on where you are, and that's what it must feel like to be a Wednesday fan. You're being attacked, you're being shocked at by all sides, and certainly I think there have been questions asked in the House of Commons, but these are the rules of the EFL. Is there any flexibility in those rules? Well, that would come down to, again, a very, very close and forensic analysis of what the rules say, and is this guidance versus is it mandate? To me, it looks like mandate, and therefore there's no flexibility. Could lines of communication be opened between Storch and Chansiri to find out a way around this? Let's say that Chansiri drops what he owns by 3/4, and so he takes a hit. He still gets something out of it, and let's face it, he doesn't deserve anything. It's him that has put the fans, players were going unpaid, government agencies were going unpaid, and so on, as were, of course, local suppliers. I think that the challenge, the challenge is trying to get hold of him. He can disappear quite easily, and certainly this was an issue as far as people connected to the club had to deal with in the months prior to the administration itself. Yeah,
non-football fans may blink a little at your Ukraine analogy, but the rest of us fully understand it.
And I'm not. I'm not. Yeah. Let me be honest. What people in Ukraine are going through is genuine personal hardship and loss of family, loss of loved ones, loss of being able to live a day-to-day life. But I'm just trying to put that as a form of analogy, in the sense of you just get worn down.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not entirely sure why this is a story, Kieran, but who are we? Who are we to doubt producer guy? But Braintree Town are looking for investment.
Yeah, Braintree Town just been relegated to the National League, and I think the reason why we cover this is that it was interesting. The owner was saying, the crowds are averaging 1,000, which isn't terrible, isn't great. And again, we've just been talking about Bury. Bury had over 7,000 last weekend. Yeah, they're in the 8th tier. There are some amazing attendances taking place at this time of the season, especially in non-league football. That sort of sense of freedom that you get at those matches. And I always, I've been to a few, and it is a completely different environment, and not a hostile one, just different. But the owner said there are some clubs in the National League paying 20 times what we are able to pay our players, and we're still losing money. I think the manager didn't get his wages on time in one of the recent months, and so on. They've only won 8 matches all season. They've been relegated. It's really tough. So yeah, they are another club who are putting out the bowl and saying, look, we've got something to offer. Is anybody interested in perhaps trying to take the club in a different direction? Who can inject funds? Who can inject a different sense of well-being within the club and so on? And that's not a criticism of the current owners. If you've got a budget of $200,000 a year, and you put in $200,000 a year, you put in all that you can afford to do, and so on. But it just shows that throughout football, and I'm currently working my way through the National League clubs, I'm not seeing any profits being made, just as I'm not seeing any profits being made in the EFL. When you drop to National League North and South, things there's some clubs which are arguably sustainable, but not necessarily making progress on the pitch.
Well, here's the problem, Kieran, isn't it? I saw a stat in When Saturday Comes recently that said in 2025, level 7 of English football, 11 clubs average more than 1,000 people per home game. That's a huge number of people. When you think back in the old days when we would go and see Tooting and Mitcham, if Palace were away, you'd be looking at 200. You always had the occasional club like Wickham, an outlier who used to get 2,000 and 3,000 then. But you would never see figures like that. But the problem is, as Harry Hugo at Farnham Town told us, who owns a club at that level, and as Braintree Town are finding out, they might be getting 1,000 in, but they're budgeting as though they're getting 5,000 in. And they're paying wages that are totally unsustainable, and they're spending transfer money that simply wouldn't have existed when we were going to see non-league football. So it's good news on one hand, but potentially, I mean, there's so many problems being stored up at that level of football, Kieran. And as you say, it's creeping down. The basket case, the Championship is very nicely lowering that basket further and further down the divisions, basically. Our penultimate story, Kieran, takes us, as I suspect, at least once a week, we will be taken to America in the World Cup. We've spoken a lot about fans being charged too much for tickets, and recently about being charged too much for public transport. But here's a city that's balking that trend.
Yes, hats off to Philadelphia. Fans will be able to travel on public transport in the city for free after the match. I think the coaches are being sponsored by an organiser, and I'm going to say it's Airbnb. Hey, Airbnb, this is a really good idea, because your name will be held in high regard. And I think tickets to the match, because this is only tickets after the match. I think tickets to the match are something like $3 or $4.
Yeah, they've capped
so
it
does go to show
levels,
that it can be done. And whilst there is no doubt a spat between some of the mayors of cities who feel hugely let down by FIFA, in the sense that these individual cities have incurred substantial costs in terms of preparing for the FIFA World Cup. They claim that they were going to be due some financial support from FIFA, and that's not been forthcoming, and therefore they're trying to recover the money this way. And for FIFA and Gianni to have the barefaced cheek to say that charging $100 or $150 for a coach or a train fare, which is a ludicrous fare, let's be honest, to say that's against the spirit of football, it is chutzpah of the highest degree.
Well, also those American cities who have pointed out, as they did very quickly, that the stadium in Philadelphia is not as far outside the city as some stadiums are outside their cities. That's all well and good, but Philadelphia still haven't put the prices up by 10 times like those other cities have done.
Yeah.
They've
They're
totally missing the point. They've capped the prices to normal public transport prices before the game, and thanks to Airbnb sponsorship, they're giving free transport back to the city after the game, because a lot of the kickoffs mean that those will be quite late at night anyway, when public transport was stopped. So that's exactly what they should be doing to make it easier for fans to get to game and cheaper, not what the rest of America are doing. I mean, this last story, Kieran, as if things couldn't get any better this week for Coventry fans. An incredible emotional speech by Frank Lampard on the pitch after their promotion, a man who's not known for his public emotion. 5,000 of their fans are in for a special treat, Kieran.
Yes. What happened was a few years ago, there was an offer. I think if you paid early, or you paid for a bit of a bundle, then should Cov return to the Premier League, you would get a free season ticket for the first season. And it's one of these things which you say at the time, it's a gimmick. Yeah, who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? Well, fair play to the 5,000 Coventry City fans who not only can enjoy every moment of being promoted, and I agree with Coventry. As soon as somebody says Coventry City, I think of that kit, that Admiral kit, of course, as we do. I think of Ian Wallace and Mick Ferguson, and I think of Keith Houchin and that goal in the FA Cup. Yeah, these are the things which. So it's a club which everybody likes, and of course, anybody that's got any taste whatsoever in music immediately thinks two-tone as well. So. It's great to have Cov back in the Premier League, and for those 5,000 fans who took the gamble and invested in the club that they love, there's an extra broad smile on your face, which I would imagine is going to be sickeningly broad for the next few months, and rightly so. Enjoy every second of it.
I just love the notion that you had 7,500 Coventry fans at Blackburn on Friday night. Well, in the away end at least, you probably had more dotted around the ground. You had probably every single Coventry fan in the world watching on TV somehow, all of whom going absolutely mad at the final whistle, except for some poor marketing bloke who just spat his beer out and just said, oh my,
how many?
How much have I cost this club? Because that's a considerable match day income hit, Kieran. 5,000 season tickets, which would have been, I would have guessed, minimum 500, 600 quid minimum. That's a fair hit, but that's the chance they took, and fair play to those fans. Yeah.
They will be breaking the club's transfer record many a time over this summer, and enjoy it. It's a great ride.
And if there's any justice in the world, their first game will be away at Stamford Bridge. That'll be fantastic for them. Don't forget, you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you can get ad-free listening, access to our full back catalogues, bonus episodes, Zoom quiz invites, and much, much more. Just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on our regular questions show, then go to questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and find us on YouTube. Some more exciting news about that to come shortly. And if you want to buy one of our books or a t-shirt, go back to that very same website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back on Tuesday on the other side of another vital weekend in the race for those Champions League places, courtesy of Sky Sports, and another vital weekend in the race to stay up. Is that a helicopter? Is that the electrician?
That's a helicopter, yes.
Is that your electrician coming down? Is it to finally fix your smoke alarm? In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thank you as always to everybody. We're recording our club night in around about 45 minutes,
yes.
and looking forward to that. And the fact that I'm doing that on the same night that Brighton are playing Chelsea, it shows how much I'm looking forward to it. And you know what you're like as a football fan? You're slightly neurotic. Well, Chelsea score a couple, I might carry on talking for a bit longer. I'm not going to turn on if we're losing. Blah blah blah. Mutter, grumble. But thanks to everybody in the Price of Football Club. We do appreciate your support, but there's another way you can support the Price of Football, folks, and that's to give us 30 seconds of your time. That's all it takes. If you can give us a review, hop along, just write something. It helps with algorithms. That's all that we know. That's all producer. He phoned. We have these Zoom calls. He says, yeah, keep saying it, Kieran. The algorithms. That's what's matter. And we don't really know what he's talking about. All that I'd say, it doesn't really matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you say in the review. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by Debbie Harry and Harry Hill.
Oh my lord! There's a crossover.
There is a crossover.
Do you know what, Kieran? I've reached a stage in my life where I'd be more inclined to spend a night with Harry Hill than Debbie Harry, to be perfectly honest. It's just not that there's any option either way, but, you know. Also, you're very different to me, Kieran, you see, because if when we start our Q&A tonight, which we're both looking forward to, you will be able to keep an eye on the Brighton score, whereas if it was me and it was Palace playing, I would not only not keep an eye on the score, I would kill anyone who told me what that score was. Because if I'm not at a Palace game, I don't want to know anything until half-time. I just put my fingers in my ears and go la 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 till half-time and then to the end of the game. If I can find a way of sleeping through each half, I'll happily do that. I might even buy a dog just so I can take it for a walk and avoid results. So, bye everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities, so do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Two kinds of fishing out here. One for fish, one for your data. Hackers try to hook you, but Cisco Duo keeps every user and device protected. Cisco Duo. Fishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.